The fluorescent lights of St. Michael's Church hummed their eternal note at 6 in the morning, casting pale yellow across empty pews. Dominic Salvatore sat in the back corner where shadows pooled deepest, his $200 haircut and $3,000 suit incongruous among the worn wood and faded cushions. The priest at the altar, Father Vincent O'Brien, spoke about redemption for all sinners in that practiced cadence of men who'd said the same words for 40 years. Dominic didn't take communion anymore, hadn't in 8 years. Not since the day his father's casket was lowered into Chicago soil and the weight of the crown settled onto his shoulders like a yoke made of iron and blood. He wasn't here for forgiveness. Men like him didn't get forgiven. He was here because Sunday mornings were the only hours in his week when no one could reach him, when the phones stayed silent and the empire ran itself for 90 precious minutes. He was here because his mother, dead 15 years now, had brought him to this church every Sunday of his childhood, back when his hands were still clean. The Mass ended. Dominic waited until the handful of elderly parishioners shuffled out before rising. Father O'Brien caught his eye from the altar, gave the smallest nod. No words. They both understood. Dominic dropped $5,000 in cash into the donation box by the door. Anonymous, always anonymous. Blood money buying new hymnals and roof repairs. The irony wasn't lost on him. Outside, the October air bit cold. Chicago in autumn, all steel and wind. His driver, Marcus, leaned against the black Escalade, third car back in the line of 4 identical vehicles. Security protocol. Never the first car. Never the last. Always protected. Always watched. Always trapped. The drive to Salvatore Global Logistics took 22 minutes through Sunday empty streets. The building rose 40 stories downtown, all glass and steel reflecting morning sun like a mirror designed to blind anyone looking too close. Legitimate shipping company, the sign said. Import-export, the business cards claimed. The IRS had audited them 3 times in 8 years and found nothing but pristine books and proper documentation. That's what happened, and you paid your lawyers more than most CEOs made. Dominic's office occupied the entire 40th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows on 3 sides, Chicago sprawling below like a kingdom he ruled from on high. The desk was Italian marble. The chairs were custom leather. The art on the walls was legitimate, purchased through proper auction houses, no stolen pieces that could draw federal attention. Everything in this room was legal. Everything in this room was a lie. Vincent Caruso waited in the sitting area, coffee already poured, newspapers already read. Consigliere, chief advisor, the only man in the organization who could tell Dominic the truth and live. He was 45, gray threading through black hair, reading glasses perched on his nose like a professor instead of the architect of a criminal empire's strategy. What's the damage from last night? Dominic shed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves. Sunday mornings meant business, always business. Vincent tapped the newspaper. 3 paragraphs, page 6. Warehouse fire in the South Side. Accidental, according to fire marshal. No casualties, no investigation. Accidental, Dominic tasted the word. Their warehouse. Their product. 50 million in prescription pills up in smoke. Someone sent a message. Marco DeLuca's crew. Vincent's voice stayed neutral, but his eyes said everything. Testing boundaries, seeing if you'll respond. Marco, ambitious capo who thought brutality and volume were substitutes for strategy. Old school mentality in a new school game. Dominic had kept him in line for 3 years, but leashes only held for so long. Set up a meeting, this week. Dominic moved to the windows, hands in pockets, watching the city wake up below. We're not savages. We have rules. He'll learn them or he'll learn what happens when you forget. Vincent made a note. Understood. Also, the new legal counsel started last week. Rebecca Morrison, Harvard Law. She's been reviewing the expansion contracts. And she's sharp. Very sharp. Found 3 liability exposures in the East Coast framework we missed. Vincent paused. She's clean, Dom. No mob connections, no debts to anyone except student loans. 200,000 worth. Dominic turned from the window. Why would someone that clean take a job with us? Vincent smiled, thin and knowing. Because we pay triple what white shoe firms offer. Because she's brilliant but came from nothing, and brilliance without connections only gets you so far in New York law. Because she needed a chance and we gave it. Does she know what we really do? She's smart enough to suspect, but suspecting and knowing are different countries. Keep her close. Dominic returned to his desk. People that smart are either assets or liabilities. I want to know which before she figures out too much. The morning bled into afternoon through a series of meetings that looked like business, but were really war by other means. Expansion into East Coast markets meant negotiating with the Castellano family out of Boston, old blood with older grudges. Territory wasn't just geography. It was revenue streams, distribution networks, political connections purchased over decades. On paper, Dominic's organization moved shipping containers of legitimate goods. In reality, those containers held a different kind of commodity. Pills, powder, product that America consumed faster than factories could produce it legally. By 3 p.m., Dominic's jaw ached from maintaining the corporate smile, from pretending negotiations over shipping routes were actually about shipping routes, and not about who controlled the flow of oxycodone from Florida to Maine. The boardroom finally emptied. Dominic loosened his tie, poured scotch from the crystal decanter, 18-year-old single malt that cost more than most men made in a month. The sun angled through the western windows, painting everything gold. From this height, Chicago looked clean, orderly, beautiful. You couldn't see the rot from 40 floors up. A knock at the door, soft, hesitant. Come in. Rebecca Morrison entered carrying a leather portfolio, her posture straight but her eyes cautious. She was 28, though she carried herself older. Dark hair pulled back, severe, gray suit that cost maybe $400, good quality but not excessive. No jewelry except small pearl earrings. Everything about her presentation said competent professional trying not to draw attention. Dominic gestured to the chair across from his desk. Miss Morrison, Vincent tells me you found issues with the East Coast contracts. She sat, placed the portfolio on her lap. 3 potential exposures, yes. She opened it, extracted a document marked with colored tabs. The liability clause in Section 4.7 creates reciprocal obligation that could expose us to litigation if any partnered entity faces federal investigation. The jurisdiction clause in Section 9 places dispute resolution in Boston, which favors Castellano interests. And the termination conditions in Section 12 have a 30-day notice period that locks us in even if circumstances change dramatically. Dominic leaned back, studying her. Most lawyers would have presented this with ego, showing off their competence. She delivered it like a weather report, just facts, no performance. Your recommendations. Amend Section 4.7 to limit liability to direct contractual obligations only. Change jurisdiction to neutral territory, perhaps Delaware. Reduce termination notice to 10 days with escape clauses for material breach or regulatory change. Dominic sipped his scotch. That would require renegotiating with Castellano. Yes. They won't like it. No, she met his eyes directly. But contracts should protect our interests, not theirs. If they won't agree to fair terms, we should question whether this partnership serves us. Bold words. Most people negotiated with the Castellanos by giving them what they wanted and hoping for scraps. You've been here 1 week, and you're already willing to tell me to walk away from a deal. I'm willing to tell you the legal reality. She closed the portfolio. What you do with that information is your decision, Mr. Salvatore. I just make sure whatever you decide doesn't land you in court. What if I told you this business involves more than just shipping containers? Something flickered in her eyes. Careful. Controlled. I'd say every business involves more than what's written on paper. I'd also say my job is to handle the legal framework, not question what fills the containers. Smart answer. Too smart. She knew, maybe not details, but she knew the shape of it. Dominic set down his glass. You went to Harvard, top 10% of your class. Why aren't you at some Manhattan firm making partner? Because Manhattan firms have very specific ideas about who makes partner. She stood, smoothed her skirt. People like me, we work twice as hard for half the recognition. You offered 3 times the salary and actual responsibility. I took it. People like you. People who came from nothing and have everything to prove. She moved toward the door, then paused. Will there be anything else, Mr. Salvatore? Amend those contracts. Send them to Castellano's people tomorrow. Let's see if they value partnership or just dominance. She nodded and left. The door clicked shut with a sound like a cell closing. Dominic watched the space where she'd stood, thinking about smart women with everything to prove and nothing to lose. Dangerous combination. Useful, maybe, but dangerous. 2 weeks passed. The Castellanos pushed back hard on the contract amendments, exactly as predicted. Dominic held firm. Rebecca's changes or no deal. On a Thursday afternoon, they folded. Vincent delivered the news with barely concealed surprise. She backed you into playing hardball, and it worked. Vincent dropped the signed contracts on Dominic's desk. Castellano's lawyer called her a viper in pearls. Dominic smiled. High praise from them. Where is she now? Conference room B. She's been there since 6 a.m., reviewing shipping manifests. Shipping manifests. Dominic's smile faded. That was operational detail, not legal framework. Why would she be in manifests? He found her surrounded by paper, laptop open, coffee gone cold. She looked up when he entered, no surprise on her face despite him never visiting the working conference rooms. Mr. Salvatore. He closed the door. Explain what you're doing. She turned the laptop screen toward him. Due diligence. I cross-referenced our manifests against Port Authority records from the past 6 months. We have discrepancies. What kind of discrepancies? Weight inconsistencies. Container 47B cleared Newark Customs at 42,000 pounds. Our manifest listed 38,000. Container 19F cleared Miami at 51,000. We documented 45. She pulled up another document. I found 17 containers over 6 months where port records don't match our paperwork. Could be clerical errors. Could be, she looked at him directly, or it could be we're moving product we're not documenting, which would be a federal crime. Smuggling, customs fraud, charges that carry 20-year sentences. The room felt smaller suddenly. Dominic moved to the windows, bought himself 3 seconds to think. You've been here 1 month. Why are you in operational details that aren't your responsibility? Because I'm good at my job, and my job is keeping this company legally protected. If we're moving undocumented cargo, I need to know so I can build legal shields. If this is clerical error, I need to correct it before federal auditors find it. And if I told you those discrepancies are none of your concern, then I'd resign. Her voice stayed level, effective immediately. Because if federal investigators come calling, my signature is on half the contracts in this building. When they ask what I knew and when I knew it, I won't lie to protect anyone, including you. Dominic turned from the window. You'd walk away from triple salary, from the career opportunity you said you needed. I'd walk away from prison. She started gathering papers. I'm not naive, Mr. Salvatore. I knew this company had, let's say, complicated operations. But there's complicated and there's federal conspiracy charges. I need to know which one I'm working for. The moment crystallized. Truth or lies, bring her in or cut her loose. Dominic made the calculation every boss makes. Her knowledge made her dangerous. Her competence made her valuable. Her integrity made her controllable if you knew the right pressure points. What's your student loan debt? 200,000. 212,000. Federal loans at 7% interest. He moved to the door, opened it. Marcus was outside as always. Get me Rebecca Morrison's complete financial profile. Everything. Bank accounts, credit cards, payment history, medical bills. I want it in an hour. Marcus left without question. Dominic turned back to Rebecca. Sit down, Miss Morrison. We need to have a very honest conversation about what this company actually does and what your role in it is going to be. She didn't sit. I said I'd resign. You can't. He returned to his desk, opened a drawer, pulled out a manila folder. This is your signature, correct? She leaned forward, examining the document. Yes, that's the Castellano contract I amended. You noticed the shipping route specifications on page 47. The containers we'd be moving. The payment structures. I reviewed every page. That's my job. Then you notice these containers aren't just commercial goods. The payment schedule is structured to avoid transaction reporting. The routing goes through shell companies in 3 jurisdictions. You signed off on a framework designed specifically to move product without federal oversight. Her face went pale. I was reviewing contract language, not operational intent. Federal prosecutors won't care about intent. Dominic opened the folder wider. Here's your signature on the Newark expansion filing. Here's your notation on the Miami distribution agreement. Here's your legal opinion on liability shields for transportation incidents. You've been signing documents for 6 weeks, Miss Morrison. Documents that federal investigators would interpret as you facilitating criminal enterprise. I didn't know. You suspected. You just said it yourself. You're not naive. You knew this company had complicated operations. You chose not to ask questions. That's willful blindness. That's conspiracy. She grabbed the edge of the desk, knuckles white. This is entrapment. This is reality. He closed the folder. You have 2 choices. Walk out right now. I'll report these documents to federal authorities myself, claim you were a rogue employee who inserted yourself into operations without authorization. You'll be disbarred, investigated, probably charged. With your debt and no income, you'll be bankrupt before trial even starts. And choice 2. You stay, you do exactly what you've been doing. Review contracts, ensure legal compliance, protect this company's interests. I pay off your student loans, all of them. $212,000 cleared in 1 year. Then you're free to leave if you want. No strings, no retaliation. She stepped back from the desk. This is blackmail. This is business. He stood, moved around the desk, closing distance. Like it or not, you're already implicated. The question is whether you're implicated and broke, or implicated and free of debt with a year of experience that'll make you marketable anywhere. I won't help you commit crimes. You'll help me run a shipping company that operates in gray areas. Everything you do will be legal on paper. I'm not asking you to move product or count money. I'm asking you to do exactly what Harvard trained you to do. Navigate complexity, find legal pathways, protect the business. She looked at the folder on his desk, at her signatures marking her complicity. Her hands shook, just slightly, but he saw it. If I say no. Then you leave this building, and by tomorrow morning, your career is over. You'll spend the next decade fighting charges while working retail to pay rent. Your father, the decorated police detective, will watch his daughter destroyed. Her voice cracked on the last word. Attell. The father was the pressure point. How do you know about my father? I know everything about my employees. Dominic returned to his chair. Frank Morrison, 25 years Chicago PD, retired under, let's call it controversial circumstances. Refused a very generous offer from certain parties to look the other way on certain activities. Good man. Principled. He'd be devastated to see you go to prison for trying to build a better life. Don't you dare bring my father into this. I'm not bringing him into anything. I'm pointing out reality. You stay, you work for me, you pay off your debt, and your father sees his daughter succeed. You leave and you both suffer. That's not a threat. That's just what happens next. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had changed. Not surrender, calculation. She was doing the math same as he had, weighing options, choosing the least bad path. 1 year. 1 year. And after that, I walk away. No retaliation. No leveraging this over me again. After that, you're free. Assuming you've been cooperative and valuable, of course. Of course. The words came out bitter. She straightened her shoulders. I'll need the debt payoff in writing. You'll have it by end of day. He extended his hand across the desk. Welcome to the real Salvatore Global, Miss Morrison. She looked at his hand for a long moment. Then she shook it. Her grip was firm. Her palm was cold. Like it or not, I'm staying. She released his hand. But understand this, Mr. Salvatore. I'll do the legal work. I'll keep your company protected. But I won't become you. I won't forget who I am. I wouldn't want you to. He smiled, and it was genuine. People who forget who they are aren't useful. They become liabilities. She gathered her papers and left without another word. Dominic watched her go, thinking about chains made of debt and fear and limited options. The best kind of chains, invisible, unbreakable, and the prisoner always chose to wear them. 3 days later, she moved into the apartment on the 39th floor of his building. Not because he forced her. Because he explained, very reasonably, that someone with her level of knowledge needed proper security, that the building had state-of-the-art systems, that rent would be covered as part of her compensation package, that it was simply logical. She moved in on a Saturday. Dominic watched from his penthouse above as movers carried her modest furniture. Not much. A girl who'd lived in grad school apartments and starter studios. Everything she owned fit in a small truck. No family helping, just her and strangers moving boxes. The last box contained books and a framed photo. Dominic's security cameras caught her holding it for a long moment before setting it on the mantel. The photo showed her younger, maybe 22, with a man about the same age. Both in graduation robes, both smiling. She touched the frame gently before turning away. Vincent appeared beside him with coffee, checking on your new acquisition. Making sure the transition is smooth. Dominic sipped coffee. Who's the man in the photo? Background check says David Chen, law school classmate. They dated for 3 years, broke up 6 months ago when he took a position in Seattle. She stayed in Chicago for debt reasons. Amicable split. According to her communications, yes, still friendly. No drama. Vincent paused. Why does it matter? It doesn't. Dominic turned from the window. Just good to know the full picture. People with clean breaks adjust better than people carrying baggage. You're playing with fire. Fire's only dangerous if you can't control it. Can you control her? Dominic watched Rebecca direct movers with the same precise competence she brought to contracts. She wore jeans and a Harvard sweatshirt. Hair down for the first time he'd seen. Younger, more vulnerable, more dangerous because of it. She's logical. She'll see that cooperation serves her better than resistance. And when she realizes she's in a cage. Then she'll understand that some cages have better amenities than others. He turned from the window. Schedule a dinner. Tonight. I want to welcome her properly to the building. Make sure she understands the benefits of her new situation. You're pushing too hard too fast. I'm establishing expectations. There's a difference. The dinner took place at his penthouse. Private chef, Italian menu, wine from his personal collection. Rebecca arrived at 8 exactly, wearing the same gray suit from the office. Professional armor. Dominic had dressed down. Slacks, button-down shirt, no tie. He wanted this to feel casual, comfortable. He wanted her to forget for a moment that every door in this building was controlled by his security system. The view from his dining room stretched across the entire city, lights glittering like stars brought down to earth. She stood at the window for a long moment before sitting. This is beautiful. It's perspective. From up here, everything looks ordered, manageable. You can't see the chaos at street level. He poured wine. Barolo, 1997. She took the glass but didn't drink. Why am I really here, Mr. Salvatore? Dominic, we're neighbors now. Formality seems excessive. Dominic, then. She set the glass down untouched. You didn't invite me to dinner just to admire the view. I invited you because I want you to understand something. He leaned back, gestured to the room. This life, what I've built, it's not what people think. It's not violence and chaos. It's order, structure, rules. It's crime. It's survival in a world that pretends to be legal but runs on the same principles we do. Power, leverage, control. The only difference is we're honest about it. He sipped his wine. Your father, good cop that he was, you think he never bent rules, never made deals with bad people to catch worse people. Don't compare yourself to him. I'm not. I'm pointing out that morality is more complicated than law school teaches. You signed those documents, Rebecca. You knew they were gray area at minimum. But you signed them because you needed the job. That's not corruption. That's survival. Same thing I do. Same thing everyone does. We just operate at different scales. She looked out at the city, jaw tight. You're trying to make me complicit in my own imprisonment. I'm trying to make you see that imprisonment is a perspective. Yes, you work for me. Yes, you have obligations. But look around. This is hardly a dungeon. You have a beautiful apartment. Excellent salary. Debt disappearing. In a year, you'll have experience that makes you invaluable anywhere. That's not imprisonment. That's investment. In your asset. In our mutual success. He stood, moved to the window beside her. I'm not your enemy, Rebecca. I'm the person who saw your potential and gave you an opportunity when Manhattan firms saw someone without connections and closed doors. You saw someone you could control. I saw someone brilliant enough to be useful and practical enough to see reason. There's no shame in that. She turned to face him directly. You really believe that, don't you? That this is somehow noble, giving people opportunities while you trap them. I believe the world is made of people who have power and people who don't. I chose to have power. You chose to survive. We're both doing what we have to do. The chef interrupted with the first course. The moment broke. They ate in relative silence, conversation turning to safer topics. The city, the weather, neutral ground where neither could wound the other. But when she left an hour later, Dominic stood at the window and watched her light turn on one floor below. Watched her shadow move across curtains. She stood there for a long time, holding something. The photo, probably. The life she'd left behind when she'd accepted his offer. Watched until the light went out. Vincent had asked if he could control her. The real question was whether control mattered. She was caught. She was useful. She was exactly where he needed her. That should have been enough. The following Monday, Rebecca appeared in his office with morning coffee already cold, files marked with her precise notation system. The Miami operation has a problem. Dominic looked up from emails. What kind of problem? She laid out shipping documents. Container 73G cleared customs Friday, but I reviewed the pickup logs. It sat at the port for 6 extra hours. No explanation, no documentation of delay. 6 hours where chain of custody is unclear. Could be port congestion. Port records show no unusual activity that day. Either our people were late or someone else accessed that container. She pulled up another document. If it's the latter, we need to know what they found. If it's the former, we have a discipline problem. Dominic studied the documents, the careful way she'd outlined the discrepancy. A month ago, she'd been discovering this company's real nature. Now she was troubleshooting operational security. The transition had happened so smoothly he almost missed it. I'll have Marcus look into it. He met her eyes. You're getting very involved in operations. You told me to protect the company. Can't protect what I don't understand. Understanding and participating are different things. Are they? She sat across from him. I reviewed my contract this weekend. My employment agreement makes me responsible for identifying legal risks across all company operations. That's what I'm doing. If there's a security breach, it's a legal risk. If there's a custody gap, it's a legal risk. You wanted me to be thorough. I'm being thorough. She was right, technically, legally. But there was something in her tone, not quite defiance, not quite submission, something harder to categorize. Your father called my office on Friday. Her expression didn't change, but her posture shifted. Subtle, defensive. What did he want? To tell me I'm a criminal who's corrupted his daughter. To threaten me with exposure. To promise he'd see me in prison. Dominic paused. I told him his daughter is an exceptional employee who makes her own choices, and he should be proud of her success. How did he respond? He hung up, but I imagine you've been avoiding his calls. I've been busy. You've been hiding. He stood, moved to the windows. This is the hardest part, Rebecca. Not the work, not the moral complexity. The isolation. When you step into this world, even at its edges, you step away from the people who knew you before. She stood as well. I didn't step. I was pushed. You walked through the door. I just closed it behind you. There's a difference. He turned to face her. Your father sees me as the villain. Maybe I am, but you're here because you made a choice. Own that. Don't pretend you're a victim. I'm here because you blackmailed me. I gave you an option you didn't have before. Employment or unemployment. Security or bankruptcy. That's not blackmail. That's just leverage. Same leverage banks use with mortgages. Same leverage law firms use with partnership tracks. I'm just more honest about it. She grabbed her files. I have work to do. Rebecca, she stopped at the door. I need you to understand something. This isn't temporary. Yes, we agreed to 1 year. But after that year, you'll have knowledge that makes you permanent whether you work here or not. The question isn't whether you're in this world. The question is whether you're protected in it. Is that a threat? It's reality. You can hate me. You can hate this situation. But the safest place for you is here, where I can ensure your knowledge stays contained and your value stays recognized. Out there, you're a liability to be managed. In here, you're an asset to be protected. You mean controlled? I mean both. He returned to his desk. Check in with Marcus about the Miami container. If someone accessed it, I want to know who and what they found. She left without response. Dominic sat in the silence she left behind, thinking about control and protection and the thin line between them. Thinking about smart women with everything to prove and how easily potential became imprisonment when you built the cage from their own ambition. Vincent appeared an hour later with news that made the morning's conversation irrelevant. Marco DeLuca, Vincent's face was grim. He hit another one of our operations, warehouse in Cicero. 5 million in product. Gone. Gone as in stolen, or gone as in destroyed. Destroyed. Burned to the foundation. No recovery possible. Dominic felt the cold rage that came before decisions men didn't come back from. Marco wasn't testing anymore. He was declaring war. Set up the meeting. Tomorrow, neutral ground, and bring Rebecca. Vincent's eyebrows rose, the lawyer, to a sit down. She needs to understand what business she's really protecting. And Marco needs to see that I'm building something bigger than street muscle and territory fights. Bring her. That's not a request. The meeting took place in a warehouse south of downtown, empty except for concrete pillars and the echo of footsteps. Marco arrived with 6 men. Dominic brought 4, plus Vincent, plus Rebecca, who he'd told only that morning that her presence was required for legal documentation. She'd asked what kind of documentation. He'd told her she'd see. Now she stood beside him as Marco swaggered forward, all gold chains and entitled arrogance. This was old school mentality wearing new school clothes. Dangerous because stupid, and stupid because he'd never learned that volume wasn't the same as strategy. Dominic, Marco's smile was all teeth. Heard you wanted to talk. 2 of my operations hit in 3 weeks. 5 million in product lost. I'm trying to decide if you're sending a message or if you're just incompetent. Maybe you're getting soft. Marco gestured around. Corporate offices, lawyers, you're not a boss anymore. You're a businessman playing dress up. Rebecca shifted beside him. Dominic felt her tension. This wasn't contracts and shipping manifests. This was the reality underneath the paperwork. Dominic kept his voice level. We have rules, Marco, territory, operations, chain of command. You want to challenge my decisions, you bring it to council. You don't burn warehouses and cost everyone money. Council's old men afraid of their own shadows. Marco stepped closer. The streets are changing. You're either strong enough to hold them or you're not. And you think you're strong enough. I know I am. Dominic nodded slowly. Then prove it. I'm giving you one chance. Back down. Accept council authority, or we settle this the old way. Marco's smile widened. You want to go old way? Let's go, but understand something, Dominic. You've gotten soft hiding behind suits and lawyers. When this is done, I'm taking everything. Territory, operations, that nice building downtown, all of it. Rebecca inhaled sharply. Dominic put a hand on her arm, gentle, restraining, not yet. He turned to Vincent. Make sure council knows Marco rejected peaceful resolution. Make sure they understand what comes next. Vincent nodded, already pulling out his phone. Dominic looked back at Marco. You have 24 hours to reconsider. After that, we're at war. And war is expensive, for everyone, but especially for people who challenge infrastructure they don't understand. Marco laughed, big words. Let's see if you back them up. He left with his crew, footsteps echoing into silence. The warehouse felt colder after they were gone. Rebecca turned to him. What just happened? Dominic started walking toward the exit. What happened is you just witnessed a business negotiation that wasn't really about business. He threatened you. He threatened to take everything. He promised something he can't deliver. There's a difference. Come on, we need to get back to the office. In the car, she was silent for 5 minutes before speaking. You're going to have him killed. I'm going to neutralize a threat to organizational stability. How that happens depends on several factors. Don't use corporate language to describe murder. Dominic turned to face her. You wanted to understand the business you're protecting. Now you understand. This isn't just shipping containers and contract negotiations. It's power, territory, control. And when someone challenges that, there are consequences. I won't be part of this. You already are. You were standing right there. Witness to his threat. Witness to my response. If anything happens to Marco, federal investigators will want to know who was present at this meeting. Your name will be on that list. Her face went pale. You planned this. You brought me there deliberately to make me complicit. I brought you there to educate you. Marco's war isn't with me. It's with everything I've built, including the legal framework you helped create. When he threatens to take it all, he's threatening your work too. You think he'd keep you employed? You think he'd honor my agreement about your debt? He'd toss you aside the second he took power, and you'd be left with nothing but your complicity and no protection. She pressed herself against the car door, as far from him as possible. You're a monster. I'm a realist. And now so are you. He leaned back. Like it or not, you're staying, Rebecca, not just in this car, not just in this building, in this life. Because there's no door out anymore that doesn't lead to prison or worse. The car pulled up to the building. Rebecca bolted the moment it stopped, practically running to the elevator. Dominic watched her go, feeling nothing but the cold certainty that every piece was exactly where it needed to be. She was trapped, she was useful, she was his. And tomorrow, when Marco DeLuca's body was found in a construction site with 2 bullets in the back of his head, she'd understand that protection and imprisonment were the same words spoken in different tones. The crown was heavy, but it was also absolute. And nothing, not morality, not law, not one brilliant lawyer with principles she couldn't afford, would make him set it down. The news broke on Tuesday morning. Construction workers found Marco DeLuca's body in a foundation pour on the south side, concrete already hardening around what remained. 2 shots, back of the head, professional, clean. The kind of message that echoed through Chicago's underworld like a church bell announcing services nobody wanted to attend. Rebecca saw it on the news in her apartment, coffee going cold in her hands as the reporter detailed the discovery. Marco DeLuca, alleged organized crime figure. Investigation ongoing. No suspects. She'd known it was coming. Dominic had told her in the car. Protection and imprisonment in the same breath. But knowing and seeing were different countries separated by a border made of blood. Her phone rang. Dominic. She let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, a knock at her door. She knew before opening that it would be one of his men. Marcus stood in the hallway, expression neutral as stone. Mr. Salvatore requests your presence. 30 minutes. It wasn't a request. Nothing with Dominic was ever a request. She arrived at his office to find him at the windows, hands in pockets, watching the city wake up below. The morning sun painted everything gold, made Chicago look clean and new instead of built on a century of corruption and compromise. You saw the news. He didn't turn around. I saw it. Marco made his choice. These are the consequences of poor choices. He finally faced her. We have work to do. The East Coast expansion still needs final legal review before we proceed. A man is dead. A man who burned 2 of our warehouses and threatened organizational stability is dead. Those are different statements. One implies tragedy. The other implies inevitability. Rebecca moved to the desk, placed her hands flat on its marble surface. I won't do this. Do what? Pretend this is normal. Pretend I can just review contracts while people die because of decisions made in this office. Dominic crossed to her, close enough she could smell his cologne. Expensive, subtle. Everything about him was calculated for maximum impact with minimum obvious effort. You think white-collar law is bloodless. Companies you'd work for in Manhattan destroy lives through bankruptcy, foreclosure, hostile takeovers. They just use paperwork instead of bullets. The only difference is distance. I'm honest about the cost. Those companies don't execute people. They just make it slower. Families lose homes. Workers lose pensions. People drink themselves to death or eat a gun in their garage because some corporate raider decided quarterly profits mattered more than human dignity. He leaned against the desk beside her. Don't pretend there's moral high ground in any of this, Rebecca. There's just different altitudes of hell. She pulled away, moved to the windows, needed space between them. My father called last night. And he knows about Marco. He knows I was at that warehouse. He asked me if I understood what I'd become. What did you tell him? That I'm doing what I have to do to survive. That he doesn't understand the situation. That I can handle it. She pressed her forehead against the glass, Chicago spreading below like a circuit board of lights and steel. I lied to my father, Dominic. Good man who spent 25 years trying to make this city cleaner. I looked him in the eye through a phone screen and lied. Because telling him the truth would hurt him more. That's not weakness. That's love. No, she turned to face him. It's what you do. Justify the next compromise. Explain why this particular line doesn't matter. You're not protecting me. You're corrupting me. I'm teaching you how the world actually works. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expression hardening. We'll continue this later. Something needs my attention. What? Federal investigation into Marco's death. They're requesting interviews with known associates. That includes you. His eyes locked on hers. FBI will want to know about our meeting, about threats, about your role in the organization. I'll tell them the truth. Will you? The truth that you've been signing documents facilitating criminal enterprise for 2 months. The truth that you were present at a meeting where threats were exchanged hours before a murder. The truth that you're financially dependent on a man suspected of ordering that murder. She felt the walls closing tighter. Every word he said was a bar in the cage. I want immunity. From what? From prosecution. If I'm going to talk to federal investigators, I want legal protection. I want it in writing that I'm cooperating under duress. I want a lawyer who doesn't work for you. Dominic studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. That thin, calculated expression that never reached his eyes. You're learning. Good. Vincent will arrange for outside counsel. Someone clean. Someone who can negotiate immunity if you're smart about how you present your cooperation. Why would you help me get immunity? Because immunity requires you to be valuable to federal prosecutors. And the only way you're valuable is if you have information worth trading. Which means you stay close to me. Stay involved in operations. Stay exactly where I need you. He moved to his desk, began reviewing documents as if she'd already ceased to matter. The interview is Thursday. 2 days. Use them wisely. She left without responding, mind already racing through options that all led to the same conclusion. She was trapped between federal investigation and criminal empire, between father's disappointment and financial survival, between principles she'd believed in and pragmatism she couldn't escape. The hallway outside Dominic's office felt longer than it had that morning. The building felt taller. The city through the windows felt farther away, like she was ascending into thin air where oxygen couldn't reach. Her apartment offered no sanctuary. She paced for an hour, nausea building in waves that had nothing to do with stress. She'd felt off for 2 weeks, dismissed it as anxiety. The kind of physical manifestation that came from working for a man who ordered executions between business meetings. But this was different, more insistent. She checked her phone calendar, counted back, felt her stomach drop as the math resolved into terrible clarity. 6 weeks, maybe 7. She thought about David, Seattle, their last weekend together before he'd left for the West Coast. They'd been careful, mostly, but careful wasn't the same as certain. The drugstore 3 blocks away sold pregnancy tests in discreet packaging. She bought 2. Used them both in the apartment bathroom with hands that shook so badly she could barely hold them steady. Both positive. Rebecca sat on the bathroom floor, tests on the counter above her, and felt the cage shrink to suffocating dimensions. Pregnant. Alone. Working for organized crime. With a father who already thought she'd sold her soul and an ex-boyfriend who'd moved across the country to escape the very debt that had trapped her here. She couldn't tell David. He'd offer to help. Probably propose some solution involving her quitting and moving to Seattle. Which would mean defaulting on the employment contract with Dominic. Which would mean federal prosecution. Which would mean her child born while she was fighting criminal charges. She couldn't tell her father. Frank Morrison would lose what little faith he had left in her judgment. She definitely couldn't tell Dominic. Pregnancy was vulnerability. Leverage. Another chain he'd used to keep her exactly where he wanted her. The decision made itself. She'd handle this alone. Same way she'd handled everything else since signing her name to documents that had marked her as complicit in crimes she'd only half understood. She called a clinic, made an appointment for the following week, used a false name and paid cash for the consultation. Started researching options while her phone buzzed with increasingly urgent messages from Vincent about contract reviews that needed her attention. 3 days later, everything changed. The meeting happened in a coffee shop 3 neighborhoods away from Salvatore territory. Rebecca had gone there during lunch, needing to escape the building and the constant surveillance and the weight of decisions she wasn't ready to make. A woman sat down across from her without invitation. 44, professional blazer, wedding band, eyes that had seen too much and stopped being surprised by any of it. Rebecca Morrison. Rebecca's hand moved toward her purse. The woman held up credentials, FBI badge, Special Agent Kate Walsh. I think we should talk. Rebecca started to stand. The woman's hand on her wrist stopped her, gentle but firm. Your father is worried about you. He asked me to reach out. I've known Frank Morrison for 15 years. Good cop. Better man. He doesn't ask for favors often. When he does, I listen. Rebecca sat slowly. My father sent you. He's terrified you're in over your head with Dominic Salvatore. He's right to be terrified. Kate slid a folder across the table. Salvatore runs one of the most sophisticated organized crime operations in Chicago. We've been trying to build a case for 6 years. We have patterns. We have suspicions. What we don't have is someone on the inside. I'm a lawyer, not an informant. You're a lawyer who's been signing documents that facilitate federal crimes. You were present at a meeting that preceded Marco DeLuca's murder. You're in deep whether you meant to be or not. Kate leaned forward. But you can also be the person who helps us bring him down. Full immunity. Witness protection for you and your father. A way out. Rebecca thought about the pregnancy tests in her bathroom trash. Thought about raising a child in witness protection. Thought about raising a child while working for a man who killed people who challenged him. What would I have to do? Provide information, documentation, access to records. She pulled a small device from her purse, looked like a thumb drive, wireless transmitter. Plug it into any computer on Salvatore's network. It'll copy files without leaving traces. He'll find out. His security is sophisticated. This technology is more sophisticated. NSA level. We've used it in counter-terrorism operations. Kate pushed the device across the table. I know you're scared. I know this feels impossible. But you have a chance to do the right thing and survive doing it. Rebecca stared at the device, smaller than her thumb, heavier than everything she'd ever risked. Why should I trust you? Because I'm offering you what Salvatore never will. Actual freedom. Not the gilded cage version. Real life where you make your own choices. Kate paused. Your father fought men like Salvatore his whole career, lost his badge for it. You can finish what he started. If I do this, I need guarantees. Complete immunity. Protection that actually works. You'll have both. We extract you the moment we have enough for indictment. You and your father, new identities, new city, new start. Rebecca picked up the device, felt its weight, felt the weight of everything it represented. I need to think about it. You have 48 hours. After that, we move forward without you. And Rebecca, Kate stood to leave. Whatever you decide, be careful. Salvatore didn't get where he is by being careless. He sees everything. She left. Rebecca sat alone with cold coffee and a device that promised salvation or destruction depending on which way the dice fell. That night, she stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. 28 years old, pregnant, trapped between federal investigation and criminal empire. Every choice led somewhere terrible. The only question was which terrible she could live with. She thought about the baby, barely 6 weeks of cells dividing, not a person yet, not really, but potential, future, the kind of future that required decisions made now. She couldn't raise a child working for Dominic, couldn't raise a child in federal prison, couldn't raise a child in witness protection running from shadows. But maybe she could raise a child free, if she was smart, if she was careful, if the FBI actually delivered on promises of immunity and protection. 2 days later, she made her decision. The device went into her computer during lunch when the office was quietest. 15 seconds to install, no visible trace. She removed it with hands shaking so badly she knocked over her water bottle. The sound echoed like gunfire in the quiet room. For 3 weeks, nothing happened. She reviewed contracts, attended meetings, smiled at Dominic across conference tables while the device transmitted everything she accessed to FBI servers somewhere. She met Kate every Wednesday at the coffee shop, reported what she documented, confirmed receipt. Tried not to think about the pregnancy, growing despite her attempts to ignore it into non-existence. At 8 weeks, morning sickness started. Not dramatic, just persistent nausea that made coffee smell like poison and had her excusing herself from meetings to breathe through waves of queasiness in bathroom stalls. Vincent noticed first. You're pale lately. Everything okay? Just tired. Long hours. You should see a doctor. Dominic values his employees' health. I'm fine, really. But she wasn't fine. She was exhausted and nauseated and terrified and lying to everyone about everything. The FBI thought she was their informant. Dominic thought she was his lawyer. Her father thought she was making legitimate salary. David in Seattle thought she was thriving in her new position. Nobody knew the truth. That she was pregnant and spying and trapped and running out of time before all the lies collapsed into catastrophe. On a Wednesday in her 9th week, Kate's expression was different when Rebecca arrived at the coffee shop. Grim, satisfied, dangerous combination. We have enough for initial warrants. Financial crimes, money laundering, racketeering. We're moving Friday morning. 3 operations simultaneously. Rebecca's stomach dropped, and the baby inside her stomach dropped with it, nausea surging. He'll know I was involved. He'll suspect everyone, create chaos, make him paranoid. Kate studied her. You look terrible. Are you sick? Just stress. This is almost over. Friday we hit his operations. Within 2 weeks we'll have enough for RICO indictment. Then we extract you and your father. New identities, new lives. You can finally breathe. Rebecca nodded. Didn't mention that breathing was the least of her problems. That in 6 months she'd have a baby to protect. That witness protection with an infant seemed like trading one prison for another. Kate slid an envelope across the table. Burner phone. If anything feels wrong before Friday call, we'll extract you immediately. Rebecca pocketed the envelope. 2 days until everything exploded. 2 days to maintain the performance while federal warrants finalized. 2 days until Dominic looked at her with those calculating eyes and decided whether she was asset or liability. Thursday afternoon, Dominic called her to his office. Emergency tone. She climbed the stairs instead of elevator, needed time to compose herself, smooth her expression, bury the terror and the morning sickness and the secret growing inside her that made everything exponentially more complicated. He stood at the windows, but his posture was different, tighter, coiled, dangerous. Sit down, Rebecca. She sat, noticed Vincent in the corner, silent, watching, predatory. I have a problem. Dominic turned from the window. Someone is accessing our systems. IT security detected unusual network activity, files being copied remotely, very sophisticated, very careful, but not quite careful enough. Rebecca's mouth went dry. Nausea surged. She swallowed hard. When? Started about 6 weeks ago. Small accesses at first, then larger. Someone knows exactly what they're looking for. He moved to his desk, pulled up a report. We've narrowed it down to 6 possible access points, all executive-level terminals. 6. She was one of 6. Odds weren't terrible, except Dominic's eyes said he'd already narrowed it further. Vincent spoke from the corner. We've been monitoring all 6 users for the past week, watching access patterns, login times, document selection. He stepped forward. You're very thorough, Rebecca, very careful to cover tracks. But you accessed the Miami shipping records at 2:14 a.m. last Tuesday. Same records FBI requested in a subpoena we received this morning. The room tilted. Rebecca gripped the chair arms, felt nausea rising. I access lots of records, that's my job. At 2 a.m., Dominic's voice was soft, deadly, when you thought building security wouldn't notice. I was catching up on work. I've been behind. The lie sounded weak even to her. You've been feeding information to federal investigators. Vincent placed a tablet on the desk. Security footage. Rebecca at her desk, plugging in the device. 15 seconds that condemned her completely. We checked your computer. Found the transmitter, very sophisticated, military grade. He smiled that terrible smile. FBI gave you good tools. Shame you weren't better at using them. Rebecca looked at the footage, looked at Dominic, calculated odds of talking her way out, came up with 0. You're going to kill me. No, Dominic sat on desk edge. You're more valuable alive. But we need to discuss loyalty and consequences. Vincent moved to the door, locked it. The sound echoed like a coffin closing. Here's what's going to happen. Dominic's voice stayed conversational. Friday morning, FBI raids 3 of my operations. You're going to call your handler. Tell her the raids were successful. Tell her you've been discovered. Tell her you need immediate extraction. I won't. You will, because if you don't, I make one phone call and your father has an accident. Gas leak in his building. Terrible tragedy. He leaned forward. Test me. Rebecca felt tears threaten, force them back. Couldn't show weakness. Not now, you wouldn't. I've known about your cooperation since week 2. He stood, moved to the windows. Special Agent Kate Walsh. Dedicated agent. Excellent service record. Also widowed with a teenage daughter at Lincoln Park High School. Vincent had very interesting conversation with Kate about priorities. She's been feeding me every detail of your cooperation from the start. Reality fractured. Kate was compromised. Everything Rebecca had risked was already known. She'd been playing a game where the opponent saw all her cards. What Kate didn't know was why Dominic had let it continue. He turned from the window. I've been watching FBI investigate me for 6 years. Always wondered how to use their interest productively. Then you arrived. Smart, principled, exactly the kind of person they'd recruit. So I made it easy for them. Let them think they were running you when really you were running their investigation for me. The raid's tomorrow. Operations I wanted shut down anyway. Dead weight. Problem lieutenants, bad investments. FBI thinks they're winning. Really, they're doing my house cleaning. He returned to his desk. You're going to continue cooperating with Kate. Feed her exactly what I tell you. And when the time comes, you'll testify against my competitors. Not me, them. I won't do it. Then your father dies tonight. Kate's daughter dies tomorrow. And you get to live knowing your moral courage killed them. His voice was ice. Is that the justice you wanted? Rebecca closed her eyes, saw her father, saw Kate's innocent daughter, saw the future she'd tried to build collapsing, saw the baby inside her growing in a world more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. She opened her eyes. How long have you been planning this? Since the day you found shipping discrepancies. I knew you were too principled to ignore them, too smart not to investigate, so I gave you enough rope. Made sure when you reached for help, you reached where I controlled the outcome. Vincent placed new paperwork on desk. This formalizes your role. You'll sign. You'll continue meeting Kate. You'll feed information. Only now you understand who you're really working for. Rebecca took the pen. Her hand shook. The signature was barely legible. Good, Dominic pocketed his phone. Tomorrow, attend the raids with Kate. Act appropriately concerned. Help process seized documents. Be the helpful informant. Can you do that? She stood on legs that barely supported her. Do I have a choice? Everyone has choices, Rebecca. You've just learned some were made before you realized you were choosing. She walked to the door. Vincent unlocked it. The hallway felt like it belonged to someone else's life. Someone who still believed in right and wrong. Her apartment offered no comfort. She sat in darkness holding the burner phone Kate had given her. Emergency extraction. But extraction would only endanger everyone more. At midnight, her phone buzzed. Text from Dominic. Like it or not, you're mine now, completely. She threw the phone. It hit the wall's screen cracking. Everything was broken. Everything had been broken from the start. The next morning arrived with brutal clarity. Rebecca met Kate at the staging area. Federal agents in tactical gear. Warrants executed on 3 locations. Justice grinding forward based on information carefully curated by the criminal they were trying to catch. The raids went perfectly. Too perfectly. Agents found exactly what warrants specified. Arrested exactly who expected. Seized documents that would tell exactly the narrative Dominic wanted told. Rebecca processed it all mechanically. Reviewed documents. Confirmed they matched transmissions. Played the helpful informant while knowing every move was choreographed. Kate pulled her aside after the 3rd location. You did good work. Major blow to Salvatore's operation. Is it? Rebecca couldn't hide the bitterness. 3 facilities shut down, 15 arrests, millions seized. Kate's expression was earnest. We're making progress. Right, progress. Rebecca wondered if Kate actually believed it or if she was performing for whoever listened. That night, Vincent appeared with an envelope. Inside, bank statement showing student loan balance. 0. $212,000 cleared. Mr. Salvatore honors agreements. You served your year. You're free to leave. Rebecca stared at the statement. Freedom purchased with betrayal. Debt cleared with blood money. What if I stay? Then you're choosing, not coerced, not blackmailed. Vincent moved to door. For what it's worth, you're good at this. Better than most. You could build real career. Doing what? Helping him destroy anyone who challenges him. helping him build something that lasts. Vincent paused. Crime families that survive aren't brutal ones. They're smart ones that adapt. You could be part of that, or walk away and wonder if you could have made difference from inside. He left. The envelope sat like a test. Freedom or complicity, justice or survival. Her phone rang. Dominic. Did you receive Vincent's delivery? I did. And I need to think. Take your time, but Rebecca, whether you stay or go, you're still connected. What you know, what you've done, those don't disappear. Safer to be where I can protect you than out there where you're a loose end. He paused. Sleep well. Tomorrow we plan your testimony against the Castellano family. The call ended. Rebecca stood holding the statement. Outside, Chicago glittered, beautiful from this height, clean, ordered. She thought about her father, Kate's daughter, Marco DeLuca in concrete, the casual way Dominic explained consequences. She thought about the baby, 10 weeks now, starting to show if you knew what to look for, a secret that would become impossible to hide within months. She thought about alternatives, walking away, starting over, living with knowledge she'd had chance to fight and chosen survival. The decision made itself. Same way all decisions had made themselves since she'd walked into Salvatore Global looking for opportunity and found imprisonment. She'd stay, she'd cooperate, she'd become exactly what Dominic had been shaping her into. She'd become his weapon. Like it or not, she was his now. Completely. And the worst part, the part that would keep her awake as dawn broke, was that some piece of her had stopped fighting, had started seeing the logic, had begun understanding that being protected by the strongest predator was evolutionary wisdom. She was becoming what she'd feared. She was becoming him. Tomorrow she'd start building cases against the Castellano family, using evidence Dominic would feed her. She'd do it with competence and precision. That's what she was good at. That's what he'd trained her to be. The Iron Crown didn't just weigh on the person wearing it. It crushed everyone in its shadow until they broke or learned to bear the weight. Rebecca had learned to bear it. And in 6 months, when the baby came, she'd teach that child to bear it too. Because there was no other choice. Not anymore. God help her, she was getting stronger every day. And that terrified her more than anything Dominic had ever threatened. 6 months transformed Chicago's skyline from autumn gold to winter gray to spring promise, but the view from Dominic Salvatore's 40th floor office never changed. Power looked the same regardless of season. So did the empire built on foundations most people preferred not to examine too closely. Rebecca Morrison had stopped examining anything. She'd learned that survival meant momentum, not reflection. Keep moving, keep working, keep building cases against families whose only crime was challenging Dominic's territory. The Castellanos fell first, then the Russians on the north side, then the Irish crew that controlled the docks. Each prosecution built on testimony she delivered with the conviction of someone who believed what she was saying, or had convinced herself she did. The line between performance and reality had blurred somewhere around the third grand jury. Her apartment on the 39th floor had accumulated the markers of success and the equipment of impending motherhood. Better furniture sat beside a crib she'd assembled alone one Saturday. Original art hung above a changing table. Wine collection gave way to prenatal vitamins and parenting books she read at 3 a.m. when sleep refused to come. She was 7 months pregnant now. The baby moved constantly, reminding her that this wasn't theoretical anymore. In 2 months, she'd be responsible for another life. A life that would be born into the shadow of Dominic Salvatore's empire, whether she wanted it or not. She'd stopped visiting her father 4 months ago. couldn't bear the disappointment in his eyes when he looked at her condition and asked questions she couldn't answer truthfully. Who's the father? Are you safe? What kind of life can you give this child? Frank Morrison had spent 25 years fighting corruption. His daughter had become its instrument and was about to bring another generation into its reach. The morning Vincent knocked on her door, she was reviewing transcripts from the Castellano trial while the baby kicked against her ribs, preparing for appeals, making sure every word of testimony could withstand scrutiny. She'd become meticulous about covering tracks. Dominic had taught her well. Federal courthouse, 1 hour. Vincent handed her a subpoena. His eyes dropped briefly to her swollen belly. No comment. He'd learned months ago not to ask questions about her personal life. Grand jury for Northern District. We're not under investigation. Rebecca struggled to stand, one hand supporting her back. All our operations are clean. This isn't about our operations. Vincent's expression was carefully neutral. It's about Dominic. The federal courthouse downtown rose like a monument to the illusion of justice. Marble columns, bronze doors, the architectural language of power and law. Rebecca had been here dozens of times as witness for prosecution. Walking in 7 months pregnant as subject of investigation felt surreal. The building seemed to judge her condition along with her complicity. Special Agent Kate Walsh waited in a conference room, flanked by 2 attorneys Rebecca didn't recognize. Kate looked older, tired, the kind of exhaustion that came from carrying weight that kept getting heavier. Her eyes went to Rebecca's belly with something like sorrow. Miss Morrison, thank you for coming. We need to discuss your relationship with Dominic Salvatore. I'm his legal counsel. You know this. You're more than that. One of the attorneys, a woman in her 50s with iron gray hair, slid a folder across the table. You've testified in 17 cases over 6 months. All prosecutions that benefited Salvatore's organization. All based on evidence that seems perfectly curated. I testified truthfully to what I witnessed. Did you? The attorney opened the folder. Several testimonies contain details you couldn't have witnessed personally. Details that were fed to you. Details designed to eliminate Salvatore's competition. Rebecca kept her expression neutral, despite the baby's kicks creating visible movement under her shirt. I stand by every word. Even when those words sent innocent men to prison, Kate's voice carried an edge. The Castellano case, your testimony about Newark. We've discovered that operation was actually run by Salvatore's people. You helped frame them. I reported what I saw. You reported what Dominic told you to report. The gray-haired attorney leaned forward. We know he's been controlling you. The blackmail, the debt, the threats. But being coerced doesn't exempt you from consequences when that coercion results in perjury and conspiracy. Rebecca's hands moved protectively to her stomach. If you're charging me, I want my attorney. We're not charging you, yet. Kate pulled out a photograph, Dominic leaving a warehouse in Cicero, 3 days ago. Warehouse that burned 6 hours later. Insurance fraud, arson, possibly murder if they find bodies. There won't be bodies. Rebecca said it before she could stop herself. Dominic always makes sure buildings are empty. The room went silent. The gray-haired attorney smiled. Thin, predatory. Thank you for that on the record acknowledgement of Salvatore's criminal methodology. Rebecca closed her eyes. The baby kicked harder, sensing her stress. After 6 months of perfect performance, 1 moment of honesty had cracked the facade. Here's your situation. Kate's voice softened, almost sympathetic. We have enough to charge you with conspiracy, perjury, obstruction. 20 years federal prison, but we're offering a way out. I've heard this before. Not like this. We want Dominic. Full cooperation, complete testimony, everything you know. You give us that, we give you immunity and witness protection. She glanced at Rebecca's stomach. For you and your child. He'll kill me. We'll protect you, both of you. You couldn't protect yourself. Rebecca opened her eyes. He got to you, your daughter. You've been feeding him information from the start. Why would I trust FBI protection? Kate flinched. The gray-haired attorney intervened. Agent Walsh is no longer on this case. Reassigned pending internal investigation. I'm Deputy Director Sarah Chen from D.C. I don't know Salvatore, I don't fear him. And I will protect you and your baby if you cooperate. Rebecca studied Chen. Federal career woman. Probably believed in the system. Probably thought justice was achievable through proper procedure. Probably wrong. I need to think about it. You have 24 hours. Chen stood. After that, we move forward with or without you. But understand that without cooperation, you're going to prison. Your child goes into foster care. With it, you might actually survive. The meeting ended. Rebecca walked out into spring sunshine that felt cold despite the warmth. Vincent waited by the car, reading newspaper like he had nothing better to do than kill time while she potentially burned everything down. The drive back was silent. Vincent didn't ask. Dominic would know every word within the hour. Sure enough, her phone rang before she reached her apartment. My office, now. Dominic stood at the windows when she entered. Standard position. But his shoulders carried tension she rarely saw. His eyes dropped to her belly when she came in. First time he'd acknowledged her pregnancy directly. Sit down, please. The please was new. She sat carefully, the baby shifting inside her. Vincent appeared in the doorway, silent, watchful. They offered you immunity, not a question. Yes. What did you tell them? That I needed time to think. Smart, he turned from the window, buying time, making them believe you're considering it. He moved to the bar but didn't pour anything, just stood there. Here's what you're actually going to do. She waited, hands on her belly where the baby kicked. You're going to accept their offer. Full cooperation, complete testimony. You're going to tell them everything. He finally looked at her, almost everything. I don't understand. You're going to give them a case they can win. Names, dates, operations, enough truth that it feels authentic, but you're going to leave out crucial details. Financial structures, political connections, the people who really make this machine run. They'll know I'm holding back. They'll know you're scared, traumatized, pregnant, doing your best while protecting yourself and your child from retaliation. That's expected. Normal. He sat behind his desk. You'll be the star witness who brings down the visible empire. Street crews, muscle, operations that were going to fall anyway. And you. I'll be charged, arrested, probably convicted on some counts. He spoke like discussing whether, but the infrastructure survives. Real power stays intact. I do 5 years, maybe 7. Resume operations under new management I control from behind scenes. She finally understood. The baby is part of this too, isn't it? Leverage, sympathy. Pregnant woman testifying makes juries more sympathetic. Your pregnancy is unfortunate timing, but yes, it helps the narrative. Scared mother protecting her child. He leaned back. You've been doing this for 6 months. This is just a bigger stage. And if I actually tell them everything? Then your father has an accident. Kate's daughter has an accident. Your child. He said it without malice, just fact. Every person you've ever cared about becomes a casualty. She stood with effort, moved to the windows. How many people down there knew they lived in a city whose real power had nothing to do with elections? When do I testify? Trial starts in 3 months. You'll have the baby first. Prosecutors will prep you after delivery. You'll be sequestered, protected. They'll think they own you." His voice dropped, "but you'll remember who actually does. The baby will be born by then." "I know." He stood, joined her at the window. "I'll make sure you have best care. Private hospital, top doctors, whatever you need." "Why? Why do you care?" "Because you're valuable. Because the baby makes you more sympathetic. Because," he paused, "because despite everything, I'm not monster enough to put pregnant woman and infant at risk unnecessarily. Just at risk enough to serve your purposes." Yes, he didn't pretend otherwise. That's exactly right. The preparation was exactly what Chen promised. Safe house in suburbs after Rebecca gave birth. 24-hour protection for her and the baby. Daily sessions with prosecutors building the case. Rebecca's daughter was born on a Tuesday in May. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Dark hair. Gray eyes that would probably turn brown. She'd decided on the name months ago. Hope. Because that's all she had left. Hope that somehow this child could have better life than the one Rebecca had chosen. The delivery was easy. The aftermath was harder. Learning to breastfeed while FBI agents stood guard outside her hospital room. Changing diapers while knowing that in 6 weeks she'd have to leave this tiny person with protective services during testimony prep. Being mother while still being prisoner. Dominic sent flowers, expensive arrangement. Card said simply, "Congratulations, best care for both of you always available." No threats, didn't need them. The message was clear. He knew about the baby. He'd make sure nothing happened to her, as long as Rebecca performed exactly as instructed. Chen visited on day 3, held Hope with surprising gentleness. "Your daughter's beautiful." "Thank you. We'll protect her, whatever happens. Full witness protection includes children, new identity, new life, both of you." Rebecca took Hope back, felt the weight of her, the trust, the absolute dependence. This tiny person hadn't asked to be born into this situation, hadn't chosen a mother who'd made catastrophic decisions that led here. "When does prep start?" 6 weeks. Standard maternity leave. Then we sequester you. The baby stays with approved childcare during sessions. You'll have evenings and weekends. And during trial. Family visitation accommodations. We've done this before. Chen's expression softened. "I know this is hard, but you're doing right thing for your daughter. Showing her that even when we make mistakes, we can still choose justice." Rebecca didn't respond. Justice felt like another word she didn't understand anymore. The trial began on a Monday in October. Hope was 5 months old, learning to roll over, starting solid foods, developing personality. Rebecca had missed so much already. Prep sessions, strategy meetings, rehearsing testimony until it felt like truth. She took the stand on day 4, wore conservative navy suit, hair pulled back. No jewelry except small cross her father had given her years ago. She looked like what she was. Professional woman caught in circumstances beyond control. New mother seeking redemption through truth. She made them believe. Question after question, she built the case. Dominic's control over operations, his orders regarding territory, his systematic elimination of competition. She described Marco DeLuca's execution without saying murder, used terms like disappeared and eliminated. Let jury imagination fill gaps. Dominic sat at defense table, expression neutral. Their eyes met once. Brief. He gave the smallest nod, approval. Defense cross-examination tried to break her, suggested she was motivated by immunity. Implied testimony was fabricated. Standard tactics. Rebecca handled it with calm precision. Yes, she had immunity. Yes, she'd benefited. But no, she wasn't lying. She'd learned to sell lies by wrapping them in truth. The jury bought it. 3 weeks of testimony, hundreds of exhibits, dozens of witnesses. But Rebecca was the star, the insider who'd flipped, the lawyer who'd found conscience, the mother who'd chosen justice for her daughter's sake. Verdict came after 4 days. Guilty on 14 counts. Racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy. Judge set sentencing for 6 weeks. Chen pulled Rebecca aside after. You did it. You brought him down. Rebecca nodded, played relieved witness grateful for justice. Inside, she felt nothing, numbness where guilt should live. That night, alone in safe house with Hope sleeping in bassinet beside her bed, she received text from unknown number. Well done. Best care for Hope always available when needed. Dominic. Even facing prison, he made sure she knew he was still in control. Sentencing day arrived with finality. Judge handed down 25 years federal prison. No parole. Dominic accepted without reaction. His attorneys filed immediate appeal. Rebecca watched from gallery, Hope on her lap. The baby was too young to understand, but someday she'd ask about her mother's testimony, about the man who went to prison, about the choices that led here. What would Rebecca tell her? The truth or another carefully curated lie? Chen appeared beside her. Witness protection starts tomorrow. New city, new identity, new life for you and Hope. What about my father? Already relocated. You'll have supervised contact once you're settled. Rebecca stood, Hope against her shoulder, watched courtroom empty, thought about Frank Morrison believing his daughter had done right thing. Probably didn't understand she'd just helped criminal restructure empire under federal supervision. The safe house in Denver felt like every other safe house. Suburban anonymity, generic furniture, windows showing neighbors who didn't ask questions. Rebecca became Sarah Mitchell, marketing consultant, single mother, divorced, boring backstory for boring life. Hope became Emily Mitchell, would grow up never knowing her real name, never knowing her mother had testified against organized crime, never knowing the empire that had shaped her existence before she could walk. Frank Morrison, now James Chen, lived 2 states away. They video called monthly, supervised by U.S. Marshals. Frank looked older each time. Retirement in hiding hadn't been kind. Or maybe it was watching his daughter raise his granddaughter in witness protection while the man she'd testified against served time in low-security federal prison. 3 years passed. Rebecca built life that looked like life but felt like performance. She dated occasionally, attended work functions, volunteered at library story time with Hope, everything normal person rebuilding after trauma would do. Hope grew, walked, talked, showed signs of being smart, observant, asked questions Rebecca sometimes couldn't answer without lying. "Where's my daddy?" Hope asked one night before bed, 3 years old enough to notice other kids had fathers. "He lives far away, sweetheart. He loves you but can't be here." Not a lie, not exactly. David in Seattle didn't know about Hope. Rebecca had never told him, had decided before Hope was born that some secrets protected more than truth ever could. Then Vincent appeared at her door on Tuesday afternoon. He looked the same, maybe grayer, but essentially unchanged. He held up badge, U.S. Marshal Service. Her protection detail had been compromised from the start. "Dominic asked me to check on you. Make sure you and the little one are settling well." Rebecca should have called real marshals, should have run. Instead, she invited him in, made coffee. Let him meet Hope, who was shy with strangers but gradually warmed to Vincent's quiet presence. "How is he?" "Model prisoner, teaching GED, reading extensively. Up for early release next year, good behavior and overcrowding. He'll serve 5 total. 5 years for running criminal empire. 5 years for crimes they could prove. Vincent sipped coffee. Real empire never stopped. New management. Same systems. Dominic still makes decisions from inside. Why are you here? Because he wants you to know you're not forgotten. Protection you have is real. When he's released, there's place for you if you want it. I don't want it. Don't you? Vincent set down his cup. You've been Sarah Mitchell for 3 years, marketing consultant. Boring life, you miss it. Miss what? Mattering, being essential. You were good at what you did. Better than good. Out here, you're nobody. I'm Hope's mother. That matters. Of course it does, but it's not enough, is it? Not for someone who used to shape outcomes. Change reality, he stood. Dominic said you'd say no. He also said you'd eventually realize safe and dead feel the same. He left. Rebecca sat in empty apartment, coffee cooling, Hope playing with blocks on floor. Thinking about empires and choices and tiny people who deserved better. 4 years later, Rebecca received letter. Prison stationery, Dominic's handwriting. The letter didn't apologize, stated facts. He'd been released after 5 years, resumed legitimate business operations. Salvatore Global restructured, gone public, traded on NASDAQ. Clean money, legal operations. Final paragraph made offer. Position as general counsel. Salary that made marketing job look like pocket change. Chance to do meaningful work. Provide better life for Hope. No pressure, just opportunity. She burned the letter, told herself she was done. 3 weeks later, she was on plane to Chicago. Hope, now 7 years old, excited about adventure. New city, new school, mommy's new job. Dominic met them at airport. Older, grayer. Prison had carved lines into face, but eyes held same assessment. Welcome back. He knelt to Hope's level. You must be Emily. Hope, actually. Rebecca's correction was automatic. We're done with fake names. Hope, then. Dominic smiled. That's a good name, important name. His office had moved. Converted warehouse in River North. Industrial chic. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking river. I'm not the same person. Rebecca stood at windows, while Hope explored the conference room under Vincent's watchful eye. Neither am I. Prison taught patience. Taught me that control isn't about immediate power, it's about institutional momentum. He joined her. Salvatore Global is completely legitimate now. Every operation, every revenue stream, clean. I don't believe you. You should. 5 years in federal prison teaches that breaking law is inefficient. Much easier to change laws, by politicians legally. Influence policy through proper channels. Same outcomes, no risk. Then why do you need me? Because legal empire needs legal architecture. You're best at building it. You proved that 8 years ago. And Hope. We'll have every advantage. Best schools, best opportunities. Trust fund that ensures her future regardless of what happens to either of us. He looked through glass at Hope, who was drawing on whiteboard. She's smart, like her mother. This is insane. This is opportunity. Same thing I offered before. Only now you understand what you're choosing. No blackmail, no threats, just decision. Rebecca looked at Hope. Thought about life in Denver. Boring job, small apartment. Constantly looking over shoulder. Constantly performing normality. Thought about life here. Meaningful work. Financial security. Hope attending schools that could nurture her intelligence instead of just containing it. What's the position? General counsel. Full benefits, stock options, real authority. You'll build frameworks that last. He extended hand. Help me finish what we started. Right way this time. She should have walked away. But she'd learned years ago that shit didn't matter. She shook his hand. 6 months later, Rebecca Morrison presented legal strategy to shareholders. Real shareholders, legitimate investors. Everything about company was clean, audited, transparent, legal. Hope attended private school on North Shore, thrived, made friends, showed no signs of trauma from years in hiding. Children were resilient, especially when given stability and truth. Rebecca had explained it carefully. Mommy had to testify at trial. Bad man had to go to prison. We had to hide for a while. Now we're safe. Now we can be ourselves. Most of it was even true. After boardroom presentation, Dominic pulled her aside. Well done. It was good strategy. It was your strategy. I provided resources. He looked at Chicago's skyline. Do you ever think about how we got here? Every day. Regrets. She considered, thought about Marco, the Castellanos, everyone who'd fallen so this empire could rise. Thought about her father, still in hiding, believing his daughter had done right thing. Thought about Hope, growing up in shadow of choices made before she existed. No regrets, just accounting. Everything has cost, we just paid ours differently. That's most honest thing you've ever said. Prison taught you patience. Life taught me pragmatism, same education, different classrooms. That evening, Rebecca poured scotch in her downtown apartment while Hope did homework at kitchen table. Expensive apartment, walking distance to office, view of river. Her phone buzzed, text from her father. How's the new job, honey? She stared at message. Frank Morrison still believed the story, believed she'd rebuilt life through hard work, believed Hope was growing up normal. She typed response. Work is excellent, Dad. Hope is thriving. We're really happy. Not a lie, they were happy, comfortable, secure. Just built on foundation of compromises that would never wash away. She sent text, sipped scotch, looked at Hope, bent over math homework, tongue between teeth in concentration. This tiny person deserved world better than the one Rebecca had helped build. Deserved truth better than lies Rebecca told daily. But deserving and getting were different countries. The Iron Crown didn't just weigh on person wearing it. It transformed everyone in orbit until they either broke or learned to forge crowns of their own. Rebecca had learned to forge. Dominic had learned to legitimize. Hope would learn, eventually, when she was old enough to understand that power was just gravity applied to human systems. The empire stood, legal now, clean now, built on foundation that couldn't be audited away. Justice had been served, criminals punished, system worked. Everyone believed the story. Everyone except the people who'd written it. Rebecca finished scotch, helped Hope with math, put her to bed with stories about princesses who saved themselves instead of waiting for rescue. Tomorrow she'd present to board about expansion strategy. Next week she'd negotiate merger that would double company size. Next month she'd be profiled as brilliant counsel who'd helped legitimate business empire rise from ashes. Everyone would celebrate success, redemption, second chances, American dream. Nobody would mention bodies in foundation, testimonies carefully curated, immunity strategically deployed, empire that never fell, just restructured. Nobody would mention crown was still iron, just painted gold. And that was final lesson, the one that mattered more than others. Power didn't require bullets when you could buy judges, didn't need threats when you controlled narrative, didn't demand violence when you understood law was just another tool. Rebecca had become the tool. Willingly, consciously, completely. Like it or not, she'd stayed. Not in building, not in city. In the life. Forever. And worst part, truth she'd never admit to father or marshals or prosecutors who thought they'd won, was that she'd stopped fighting years ago. Stopped because fighting required believing there was something to fight for. She'd learned that world was just competing empires wearing different uniforms. She'd chosen her uniform. Tailored, expensive, respectable. Crown beneath was still iron. But from outside, it looked like victory. And in end, that was all anyone saw. All anyone ever saw. As this story's narrator, one question haunts me. When did Rebecca stop being trapped and start choosing the cage? She had exits, FBI protection, witness programs. She could have walked away broke but free. Instead, she returned, raised her daughter in Dominic's shadow, became general counsel of the empire she once tried to destroy. I'm 50 plus. I've seen people rationalize their way into cages they built themselves. Rebecca's not a victim by the end. She's an architect. Where's your line? What wouldn't you compromise for security? Drop your take below. Subscribe for more hard questions.